off this West Coast matchup here between Oregon and Utah. Honestly, it's deflating. It's deflating. Again, the West Coast was simply participating. Happy to be there. Give us our 12 games of football. We'll play them, and then we got other things to do. They're not going to the playoffs this year from the West Coast. What do you take out of what you saw from an Oregon team that went on the road and beat now, which looks like one of the best teams in the country in Ohio State, without a couple of their defensive stars laying down tonight in Salt Lake City? Trevor, I'm going to go to you first. How is this possible in teams? Like, there's a human element and there's a, damn, we've been at this for 2 months element, but don't they know what's around the corner?
They should, right? But they've been hanging on for dear life. We've talked about the West Coast being out of it for quite some time on this show, and then the committee comes in and puts Oregon right in the thick of things. They had their destiny ahead of them. All they had to do was win out, essentially, and they were going to get a cupcake. Unfortunately, they came up short tonight. I thought Anthony Brown was off. His receivers were turning back and wondering why the ball was low and high. There was just a disconnect there, and they got steamrolled in the mountains up there in Utah.
Bryce Petty, let's go right there to Anthony Brown. He looked like he was game ready. I mean, he's had 2 straight seasons of starting at Boston College. You come to Oregon, you do your apprenticeship year, you go on the road. Like, we got the Roman army in Tuscaloosa, and you got your White Walkers in Athens. I don't know what you call Ohio State. It feels like they're the U.S. military, Army, Navy, Air Force, like everywhere they're coming. He beat them.
Yeah.
But then tonight,
at Columbus,
there's balls 4 or 5 feet, to Trevor's point, 4 or 5 feet over guys' heads. You're on the run, trying to escape, stumbling, falling down, throwing balls at people's feet. Like, we all have an off night, but you usually have off moments. And then when you're that close, and all 3 of you have been in this situation, you're that close. Don't worry, guys, I got it.
Yeah.
He never stood up. He never bowed up. Like, from the audience, as a highly successful quarterback, what was he missing, or what was his team needing from him in like such a pivotal game? You're in the last lap of the season.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, man. And that's the thing. We talked about that. Pressure and expectations do things to you. No one counted those guys in that game in Columbus. Everybody was like, man, this is going to be a shoe-in win for Ohio State, even though they were still struggling. Who thought that Oregon was going to come in there and beat them without Thibodeau and without Sewell and some of those other guys that they had out that week. And then that's what happens, man. When you don't have expectations, you just go right in and everybody's together. Now, to kind of piggyback off of what, you and Trevor were both saying just a second ago, now there's something to be playing for. There's something, that's kind of at the end of the buffet here. After you pass your Jell-O and salad and all that kind of stuff, there's a good banana pudding at the end. And you have to take care of business tonight, and this is a game that, and we were talking about it a couple of weeks back, that, I mean, shoot, man, Utah's a tough place to play. I mean, hell, they got new helmets out. They get these gray uniforms. They got Oregon coming in the house. They have something to play for while you're trying to sit there and play your way into the playoffs. So that's that. But the thing that makes me upset as a quarterback is when I got receivers turning to me, throwing their hands up like get the ball up. That's when my fuse gets real short real quick. Because I'd love for those guys to come out and step. Okay, well, then you get behind these 5 dudes right here in the pocket and throw you the ball, especially when I've been doing it for as long as I have with you. So right. To me, there's a cultural thing there. There's an offensive just charisma that's gone. So maybe this is the best thing that happened to them. They didn't go walk into national television and playoff and have that stuff happen to them. Because to your point, George, most times you have off moments. You don't have off games, but at the same time too. Man, I've had an off game before. I've never had a guy, throw his hands up at me, at least while I was at Baylor, at the Jets, it happened several times. But, at Baylor, it was like, hey,
different story.
Yeah, exactly. But I was like, hey man, I got you. And so I started beating my chest back. Like I got you. That's on me. I never saw that from Anthony tonight. So it was kind of it was a weird mood, a weird point. And that's what happens, man. You go get your ass kicked 38-7 because you weren't ready to play and guys aren't there fighting for you either.
Hack. When you look across the landscape, we knew the ACC was done really after about 3 weeks. Florida State, like they were 3 weeks late coming into the season, and Clemson had already been knocked out in 2 or 3 different bars, like off the bat. So ACC is done. Big 12, Iowa State ranked 7, Texas ranked top 15, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma's one of the 5 families, and now the wheels came off. Pac-12, to be honest, I don't think most of us even had expectations on them. And the one team that we said, honestly, if somebody does come out of that neighborhood, they're going to be wearing green and gold, and they got laid out. Is it, and we had this conversation last week, is it really, when people talk about Power 5, is it really the Super 2 and the other 3? Because this is, again, they haven't had a playoff participant. I think it's 5 years, maybe 6 years.
Yeah.
There are no monsters west of the Mississippi. No monsters west of the Mississippi. That's amazing in college football.
Well, I think what's crazy is when you look at the Pac-12, I mean, the last consistent run was Chip up in Oregon, correct? When you talk about sustained success for a few years over and over again. And then before that, the argument would have been Pete Carroll at SC, right? So that's a lot of time and a lot of years where it was just kind of like, in between. And then moving into now. So I feel like a lot of these conferences are cyclical outside of the SEC. And even the Big Ten gets that way, and they've just had the luxury of having Ohio State, who's had a lot of stability going from Jim Tressel to Urban Meyer and now to Ryan Day.
That's true.
They've just kind of passed that baton, and they've sustained that success, right? So, like, the Big Ten has had the luxury of that, and I think the Big Ten's done a great job this year of getting better in terms of their depth, top to bottom, and specifically in the East Division, as I have hammered over and over again. But, and then even looking back at, like, the Big 12, that they've had a really down year this year, comparatively speaking, because usually, you're talking about Baylor, really since Art Briles and all that stuff happened down there. And then Matt Rule came in, kind of got them back, but then they're still, there's just inconsistency within that conference that conference has really never dealt with either. Oklahoma was always rolling and rocking. And then you had Baylor, and Texas Tech was up and beating people. So, like, you had different programs that don't have as much stability. And then Texas has been, a ghost since Mac Brown. And really since Colt McCoy. So it's like, there's just not as much consistency, I think, when you speak of those other conferences. And I think that's hard to be able to play yourself into situations. And then specifically with this Oregon game, I think it's a lot of credit to Utah. I think Utah has been playing really well and building into this game. And I think, Bryce, you made a great point. Oregon was kind of playing not to lose because they saw what was coming down the pipe for them and the opportunities that were coming. And I think Utah is a team who had nothing to lose and has built a lot of momentum over these few weeks. Kind of the perfect storm there. So it's interesting, man. And I think it's going to be really cool to see how it plays out and who gets these opportunities. Because I think one of the things we talked about was, like, really, if you look at it, if you're in the top 10, the way the schedules shape out, you got a shot. So I think it's going to be really interesting, and they're making it really hard for the college football committee. You know what I mean? Making it really hard.
It's going to be difficult. Just to wrap up this game, fellas. Anthony Brown, again, a veteran. You came from the ACC to Oregon, a 2-year starter, 28 games under your belt. Tonight, 17-35. 17-35 would have been like, man, that's solid back in like 1995, like 2002. It's a vertical game. Half the plays don't even have a check down in them. There are so many plays in college football, really football in general, that happen behind the line of scrimmage that are gimmies. 17-35 for 231. Flip that on the other side. Oregon, Cameron Rising, who only took over 7 games ago, 10 of 18, 178, still pretty economical, no turnovers. And then you got to give it to the Utah staff. First 4 times in the red zone, touchdowns. That's the story in the Pac-12 that, again, just participating. And it is frustrating out here. We have no monsters. USC and UCLA are both in the coaching. Well, damn, that's on me. UCLA could be looking for a coach. They put a lot on it. The sports radio down here about Chip Kelly. SC is looking for a coach. Washington is looking for a coach. It's going to be fascinating to see, but there are no monsters. There aren't even like bears, let alone werewolves. There's no bears out here. Everybody just kind of moving around, get to the assigned stadium, play your assigned game, shake hands. See you guys next week. Good luck to you. There are no warlords out here. It's just fascinating. Kind of like how we did that exercise. If you dropped Arkansas here, if you dropped Cincinnati in the Pac-12, what would happen? I think they would just blitz it.